Hello and good afternoon, CTS266 section 840 students for the spring 2016 semester at Anne Arundel Community College. This is the Cisco Networking Academy CCNP Switch course, and this afternoon's video tutorial is going to be a continuation of the Cisco Networking Academy Lab 6-1, where we were talking about first hop redundancy protocols, and specifically we were looking at HSRP, and then we were going to take a look at VRRP. And so you'll remember I commented in class as to why part 2 of the lab didn't post. And so I wanted to talk about that here, and then we're going to take a quick pause while I actually perform the upgrade on these routers. So I'm on DLSW01 here. And remember from part 2, step 1, what we were going to do was we were going to go in and basically pull off all of the HSRP configuration information that we had already implemented across the different VLANs. So on DLSW01, if I went into global config and said do show run, and let's come down, we want to come down to the very end of our configuration here, and so we'll give this a second. We've got 48 ports on this switch, and then we're going to get into the VLAN configs. We ran the no standby group number command for the different groups that we were configuring. Right, and so VLANs 10, 20, and 99. We're going to have the VRRP virtual master on DLSW01, and then they would be the virtual backup router for VLANs 30 and 40, and then DLSW02 was going to be the primary for VLANs 30 and 40. I shouldn't say the primary, the virtual master router. And then the virtual backup for 10, 20, and 99. Now, what's interesting here is when I say do show vir, you can see that I'm running 12.2.55 SE10 code here. Now, ironically, this is per the Cisco web page. If you go in and you look up the actual hardware right here, this wired switch, WS-C for Catalyst, 3750-48 TS. If you go and look up the latest code for this switch, it is definitely 12.2.55 SE10. Well, here is the problem I ran into that evening when we were getting ready to kick this lab off. I was going to follow this, follow the HSRP part 1 up with this. So if I were to go into interface VLAN 10 and say VRRP question mark, you can see that it says unrecognized command. So it's acting as if, and let me center this here a little bit better, it's acting as if that VRRP command is not there. If I say do show SDM prefer, you can see that we have the proper IPv4, IPv6 dual template for the switch database manager. So it's not a problem with routing not being turned on. So here's what I found out, is that the 12.2.55, ironically, Cisco, whoops, sorry about that, just dropped my pen. So ironically, Cisco did not start supporting VRRP until 12.2.58 SE. And that's when they started supporting it in iOS on the switching platforms. However, the text as well as some Cisco documentation says that the coverage for this, for VRRP support in that 12.2.58 across the different switching platforms is very spotty. So what I had to do was I had to go and download the IP base image for 12.2.58, and I want to say it's SE3 for the 3750G. Now this image, and it's funny, the reason that this is the last image, this image is 15, I believe it's 15.7 megabytes in size, and these 3750s that I have can only hold up to 16 megabytes in the flash. So here's what I'm going to do. I tested this out at work with Robert, and we got this to work. Basically, we just need to put that iOS image, 12.2.58, and then VRRP is available. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. We're going to pause the video. When we come back, you're going to see this is going to say 12.258 SE. I believe it's 3, but it's going to be IP base. Now, this is not going to change a whole lot for us because I don't believe that we are running any kind of a routing protocol across do show IP route. I can't remember how we had this set up. Yeah, I don't believe we're running any kind of OSPF. Do show run include OSPF. And I don't think we're running EIGRP. So yeah, we're not running any routing protocol. So this isn't going to do anything negative other than give us the capability of continuing and finishing this lab up here with VRRP. So I'm going to go ahead and pause, and when I come back, we'll be running 12.258. And we're going to be able to knock this lab out. All right, go ahead and stand by for just a second. All right, well, we've got the upgrades done. I also wanted to pull this document up here from the Cisco website. You can see that this is the Catalyst 3750 Switch Software Configuration Guide. And it's kind of interesting, what I pointed out earlier. It says right here, Cisco iOS release 12.258 SE adds support for VRRP for IPv4 and IPv6. Now, what's interesting about this is when you go to the bottom of this document, it says the switch supports VRRP only for IPv4. And this is the configuring VRRP section of the document. So Cisco definitely would like you to use HSRP in the event that you have a choice. And not a lot of documentation. Again, this is the first release here, the 12.258 SE, where this was actually supported. So let's go ahead and jump back, excuse me, to DLSWO 1 and 02, and we're going to dive in, and you're going to see here, we'll go into global config. So for interface, for VLANs 1020 and, or I'm sorry, 102099, DLSW1 is going to be the primary. So let's go to interface VLAN 10, where we would say VRRP. And now you see, if I say do show version, what are we running? Well, now I'm running 12.258 SE2 again. This is from the same 3750 family, but the only image that's small enough that I can load was for the 3750G IP base. But that gets me 12.258 SE2, and it gets me, more importantly, the VRRP support here so that we can finish this lab. All right, so we're going to say VRRP 10 IP 172.16.10.5 is the virtual IP we're using. And this is our primary, so VRRP 10 priority, and you can see that we've gone to the virtual master status. I'm going to set the priority to 200. That's the number I like to use for my primaries, or in this case, the virtual master. And then what else could we set? So VRRP 10 question mark, I can put a description on here, right? I can say this is the VRRP group for VLAN 10. We've got preempt. Now remember, preemption is enabled by default. If I say do show VRRP right now, let's take a look at the output we've got here, because we do have some interesting output to take a look at. Remember some of the differences, right? Let's compare and contrast a little bit. So the state is master. With HSRP, it said active, right? Remember that HSRP said active. VRRP is going to say the state is master. We have our virtual IP address. Now remember, we're talking about VLAN 10, which is group 10. Therefore, look at the MAC address. It's a little different, right? But the same philosophy here at the end, 0A, which gives us 10. So it is going to match the group number. Now, the advertisement interval. The hellos, right, the VRRP hellos are going to be sent every 1 second. Now, the dead interval is 3 times the hello interval here, so it's actually technically like 3.8 something seconds, right? So it's a little more than 3 times the hello interval. But again, if you were to miss 3 hello packets, you're going to exceed that time there, and it's going to go the VRRP relationship with the other distribution layer switch is going to go down. So here you can see preemption is enabled, right, by default. I didn't have to type in VRRP 10 preempt. It's on by default. Priority is 200. Here is the master router, and that is us, right, local. Shows my priority again and again. Master advertisement interval 1 second. Master down interval is 3.218, and maybe it's 3.2. I thought it was 3.18, but it's above 3 seconds. It goes out to the decimal places here. So let's do this right now. Let's go ahead. We're going to do some other VRRP configuration, but before we do, let's go ahead and say debug VRRP. If I do a question mark, we're just going to say all. So what I should see here initially are my advertisements, and take a look at that. It's every 1 second where we are sending advertisements for VRRP, right, for group 10. So I'll say you all, and let's kill the debugs. And then we'll come back with a debug VRRP question mark, and I want to get events, and I want to get state information, and I want to see any errors. All right, so we've got some debugging on, and actually we're going to be tracking something here. So let's take, I don't know if I put that in already. So let's see, show debug. All right, so that's what we're debugging. Let's get back into global config here. Whoops. There we go. And let's finish up our configuration here. So VLAN 20, we're also the virtual master router. DLSW1 is for VLAN 20. So let's go ahead and say VRRP 20 IP is going to be 172.16.20.5. All right, and we'll let this run by here so you can see we've got the primary IP configured, and we're transitioning now into a different state, right, from init to backup, from backup to master. Now let's go ahead and say VRRP 20 priority 200. We should see a little message here telling us that we've incremented the priority to 200. No, it's not going to give us anything here. All right, we're not going to see anything here. Typically, or I thought we would see something come up to tell us that we had changed our priority there. All right, so that's what we've got. Let's say do show run int VLAN 10. And let's try to keep things the same here. So we'll say VRRP 20 and description, the VRRP group for VLAN 20, right? Okay, so that takes care of VLAN 20, and then finally interface VLAN 99. We're going to say VRRP 99 IP 172.16.99, and in fact, let me check that. Is that the IP? Do show run int VLAN 99, and it is. So VRRP 99, group number 99, IP address 172.16.99.5. So there we go. We brought that up. So then we're going to say VRRP 99 priority 200. Throw a description on here. Just like so. All right, so now let's say do show run, and let's begin at interface VLAN 1. And we'll get right down to our VLANs here. So VLAN 10, 20, and 99. We're clearly set up here as the virtual master router for those 3 VLANs. Now let's go over to, well, actually, we should probably finish up here. Let's go ahead and set up VLAN 30 and 40 as well, but we'll be the secondary on those. So interface VLAN 30, VRRP 30, IP is 172.16.30.5. VRRP 30 priority is going to be 150 because we're the secondary. And again, we don't need to turn preemption on. We'll forego the description. Interface VLAN 40, VRRP 40 IP 172.16.40.5, and then VRRP 40 priority is 150. All right, so let's say write mem here. All right, so we're going to save the configuration here on DLSW01. Let's say show VRRP brief, because we've got a number of groups here. And so take a look at what we have set up so far, right? So we are clearly the master for everything right now, although that's going to change for VLANs 30 and 40. Let's go ahead and jump over to Distribution Layer Switch 2, and where we have also done the upgrade to 12.258 SE2, and let's jump into Interface VLAN 10. Now these are going to be, first we'll get into global config here. So these are going to be a little easier to do because again, we've only got 2 statements to enter in for VLANs 10, 99, and 20. So Interface VLAN 10, VRRP 10 IP 172.16.10.5, VRRP 10 priority is going to be 150 because we are the backup. You can see the state change. We went from init to backup. Did we see anything over here? Nothing happened over there, but we went from init to backup here. We don't need the preempt. Again, it's on by default. So interface VLAN 20, VRRP 20 IP is 172.16.20.5. VRRP 20 is priority of 150. Interface VLAN 99, VRRP 99 IP 172.16.99.5. VRRP 99 priority is going to be 150. Now let's get into the 2 VLANs that we are the virtual master for, and that's going to be VLANs. And in fact, if I were to say do show VRRP brief right now, you can see that we are the backup for all 3 of those VLANs. You can see here the master address clearly shows DLSW01. Preemption is enabled, right? Okay, so if I were to go into interface VLAN 30, now this is going to be the first one that we are going to be the virtual master for. So VRRP 30 IP 172.16.30.5, and we're going to say VRRP 30. You can see where it said init to backup. Well, watch what happens here when I change the priority to 200. What do we see happen here? Now remember, preemption, and there you go. We transitioned into the backup, from backup to master, right, for VLAN 30, and this little dot right here went blue, telling me that on DLSW01, something happened. Sure enough, we get a syslog message telling us that we have gone from master to backup on DLSW01. And that's because we changed the priority. Our priority here locally is 150, and over on DLSW02, do show VRRP brief. For VLAN 30, the priority is 200. Let's do that same thing for interface VLAN 40. VRRP 40 IP 172.16.40.5, VRRP 40 priority 200, and that is all we need. So we should see this transition here shortly, right there into the master state. So show VRRP brief, and there we go. We are the master for VLANs 30 and 40, and that is it. Let's do a longer output here. If I were to say show VRRP, right, you can see we had group 10, group 20. So here's group, here's group 30, where our state is the virtual backup router, right? And again, 30 in hex is going to work out to be 1 echo, right? 1 echo. So how do we arrive at that? Again, we do that hex to binary to decimal conversion. So 1 echo in hexadecimal, we know the group number is 30. So if we were to write out 30 in binary, it would be 0001. Remember, it's 128, 64, 32, and then 16. So 1, and then 24, and we need 6 more, so that's going to be 4, and then 2, and then 0. So then all we do, because remember this is 8, this is 4, and this is 2, and this is 1, is then we divide it up here and we say, what are the values here? 12, 14. Well, 14 in, oops, sorry, I was going to say F. 14 in hex is E, and the value here, it's no longer the 16, right? Because we're dealing with the nibble. The value is 1, so we end up with 1 echo. And that's where that comes from. Same thing, if we take a look down here at group 40, 28. So 40 in binary would be 0, 0, 32, 0, 40, 0, 0, 0. Drop it between in the middle here. So now we have 2 nibbles we're working with. What is the value of that bit position in this nibble? 8. What is the value of that bit position in that nibble? 2. 28. There you go. Same thing, group 99, 63. This was actually the challenge question from last week. Okay. So that takes care of the VRRP group numbers. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be setting up authentication and some tracking here. So first let's take care of the tracking. If I remember correctly, we should be able to ping 209.165.200.254. That should be, there it is, yeah. That is a loopback address, I believe, that we have defined here on this. Yeah, loopback 200, show IP interface brief. And where's my loopback address? There it is, loopback 200. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to track that loopback. And remember, with VRRP, there is no built-in interface tracking. We have to use object tracking. So here's how this is going to work. So I'm going to say track, and I think we can go up to 1,000. Yep, track 99. So we'll say track 99, or actually, what are we doing here? We're going to do this in we're going to do it in VLAN 99. So we're going to say track 99 interface loopback 200 line protocol. So basically, I'm creating a tracking object. The number is 99. And what is it tracking? It's tracking interface loopback 200, the line protocol status, so that if that line protocol status goes down on loopback 200, we're going to get an alert. I'm going to say interface VLAN 99. And then I'm going to say VRRP 99, track 1, decrement. Now remember, we're the primary, but our priority is 200. The backup is 150, so I'm going to decrement by 51. And what that would do, and you can see here, right, you got to love the debug. So it tells us start tracking, right? And it says object 1 does not exist. Did I put, oh, I put track, sorry about that. So let me go ahead and pull that back. There we go, right there. VRRP 99, track 99. And thank goodness for the debugs, right? The debugs just saved me right there. All right, so there we go. So we're tracking it. It's a linking object, right? And the track change priority, we're still at 200. So nothing has happened yet. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take down the loopback interface here. So we'll go interface loopback 200. And I'm going to say shut. And let's see. So take a look at that. VRRP, and that was almost instantaneous from me hitting enter to our tracking state 99 interface loopback 200 line protocol went from up to down, which means VLAN 99, group 99, track 99 changed state from up to down. And here we go. Now this is what we did not see in the challenge activity for VRRP, is we didn't see on IOU, for whatever reason, it didn't decrement the priority for us. However, here it works like a champ, right? And it may have been that, again, IOU might have been wanting me or expecting track 1 instead of, I think I used track 10 or something like that. So again, but you can see what happens. VRRP changing priority from 200 to 199. And the IPSLA state shows that we are down right now. So if I were to say do show IPSLA, whoops, brief, and actually not brief, what am I looking for here? Control U. So show IPSLA, what did I want to see? Statistics, there we go. So you can see that this is what we're tracking, right? Or actually, is it showing? Actually, no, I'm sorry. We had, yeah, that's right. This is from the previous activity from the HSRP we set up the IPSLA for the HSRP. So sorry about that. Getting my tracking confused here. So again, we went for group 99 from master to backup. So if I say show VRRP brief, you're going to see for VLAN 99 that our priority was decremented to 149, meaning that over here on DLSW2, you can see he went from backup to master. Show VRRP brief. He is the master because his priority is 150, which is higher than 149. So then step 3 here in part 2, we've got this challenge. It says alternative option for VRRP configuration. And this is an interesting one, and there were some questions on this. So it says remove the VRRP commands from the interfaces and implement VRRP using the IP addresses assigned to the SVIs. So here's how this would work. I'm only going to do this for VLAN 10. So let's go into global config. We're going to say interface VLAN 10. And I'm going to say no VRRP 10 IP address 172.16.10.5. So we're going to get rid of the virtual IP, and we're going to do the same thing over here. Let's go to global config interface VLAN 10, no VRRP 10 IP 172.16.10.5. So now when I say do show run interface VLAN 10, you can see that all we have in here is the VRRP 10 priority statement. Over here, do show interface VLAN 10. Oops, sorry. Do show run interface VLAN 10. We've got our description and our priority statement. So here's what we're going to do. The physical interface IP for DLSW01 for VLAN 10 is 172.16.110. So I'm going to say VRRP 10 IP, and I'm going to make it 172.16.10.1. Now, remember, this is the physical IP address of VLAN 10. But with VRRP, this is an option if you wanted to do this. You can use the physical IP. Now, here's the trick. When I go over, and this is interesting that they didn't actually show this or explain in the lab really any further than this. When you go to DLSW02, if I say do show VRRP brief, you'll notice we're not doing anything for VLAN 10. Now, what I need to do over here is under interface VLAN 10, I need to go ahead and configure the exact same thing, VRRP 10 IP, but I'm not picking the physical interface of the virtual backup. I need to use the same physical interface IP of DLSW01, in other words, of the virtual master router. So 172.16.10.1, right? So we're using one of the physical IP addresses, specifically in this case, and take a look. We transition immediately to backup. So now let's take a look at do show VRRP brief. And you can see here that for VLAN 10 or VRRP group 10, everything is working exactly as we had anticipated, right? We've got our master address and we have our group address. It just so happens that they are both the same. And that's, again, because we're using the physical IP address from that interface. Now, if I come over to DLSW01 and say show VRRP brief, you'll notice that the own category finally has something in it. And this is what I had alluded to before. And I thought Christopher and Robert did an amazing job on this in class as they were working through trying to figure out how to get this to work. And so here you can see that it has a Y in the ownership column for VLAN 10, or for, I should say, VRRP group 10. You'll notice the priority shot to 255 as well. I didn't configure 255, so when you use the physical IP, whatever the master is going to be, it's going to put the priority to 255, okay? It's also going to say, are you the owner? Do I own this master IP address? And the answer is yes, this switch owns it. Now, if I were to come over, let's clear the screen here, clear the slate out. If I were to come in here and I were to change, let's go to global config and say interface VLAN 10, VRRP 10 priority, and put the priority at 5. And take a look what happens. Priority change will have no effect whilst, and I'm assuming that this line of code must have been written over in Europe somewhere, whilst interface is VRRP address owner. So what if I say do show VRRP brief? You see what happens here? It's not going to allow me to change the priority. So there are some, at least from what we looked at and from what I've seen, there are some very limited use cases as to why you would use the physical IP address off one of either the routers or the multi-layer switches that you're using as the VRRP virtual master and backup. So one of the use cases would be that you desperately want to save that third IP address. And it is theoretically possible, I guess, that you're using a /30. So if you were using a /30, you would only have 2 usable IPs. And maybe that's what you've got. And therefore, with a /30, you could use VRRP and use one of the physical IP addresses as the quote-unquote virtual IP. The other use case is that you don't want the priority to be changed for some reason, because as you can see, it won't allow me to change the priority. Let's look at the backup. What did it do to the priority over here on the backup? Do show VRRP brief. You can see that it's set to 150. But what if I come in here, interface VLAN 10, and say VRRP 10 priority, and I'll set it to 25. So on the backup, what is it going to say? On the backup, it doesn't care because, again, it's the backup. So it hard codes in that priority so that you couldn't have somebody misconfigure the priority, even if I were to come in here and say priority 255. You'll notice it doesn't let me set it to 255. What's the highest I can go? It's 254. So in other words, the other use case would be you want to avoid a misconfiguration where, for whatever reason, somebody were to change the priority and it would cause some sort of an issue. Okay, so here's what we're going to do now, and this is what I had Christopher and Robert do, which was we're going to go ahead and see what happens. Let's save our config here. Let's say end and write mem, and we're going to reload DLSW01, and there it goes. So now I'm going to come over to DLSW02. Let's save the config here, and you can see for VLAN 10 we went from backup to master. So show VRRP brief. What do we see now? Well, we are the master, but take a look at the priority. The priority is still 25, and again, it's 25 because there's no reason to change it to 255 because there is no other router that could take over. So basically, whatever the secondary priority is that we configured, that's what's going to stay set up on this VRRP group. And as you can see, we transitioned to the primary here, or I should say the master, the VRRP virtual master for all of these groups. So now when switch DLSW01 comes back up, it should automatically preempt and take over. And again, take a look here. The group address is still 172.16.10.1. If I came over to ALSW01, and let's see if this would work, ping 172.16.10.1, can I ping what is the physical IP? Put a bunch of pings in here. So take a look at that. Can I ping the physical IP address of DLSW01 VLAN 10, which is rebooting right now? And absolutely I can, because it is being used as the virtual IP for group 10, for VLAN 10. And so, whoops, sorry, I wanted this one over here. And so the pings are going to continue to work. There was something online that we had found that said that you would not be able to ping the physical IP address when it failed over. Obviously because it's down, but you can still ping that address because, again, that is the virtual IP. That's the address that's being used. Let's do Control-Shift-6. Can I ping the physical address of router 2, which was 172.16.10.2? Absolutely, right? So I can also ping the physical address of DLSW 02, right? So it works, and again, the limited use cases that I see for this would be you've got a /30 and that's all you've got. So you only have 2 usable IPs. But if you're configuring the VLAN, it doesn't make much sense that that would be the case, or that you would do something like that. Again, the other use case would be that you want to avoid a misconfiguration with the priority settings, but this is not something that you can do with HSRP. So let's see where we're at over here. And there you go. Priority change. We get that priority change message again. And what we should see happening is we've got the port channels are coming up. The VLAN should be coming up. And we should see that we are going to get stripped of our master status here. And that the master address will change to 10.1. The group address, again, will stay the same because that's our virtual IP, but we should change to the virtual backup due to the fact that a router 1 is going to preempt, and there it is, right? And it should take over for 10, 20, and again, the loopback interface is down, so 99 is going to stay or I should say DLSW02 will stay as the master for 99. And there you go. If we come over to DLSW01 to wrap this lab up, we'll go into Global Config. I'm sorry, Privilege Exec, show VRRP brief. And there it is. The priority is back to 255. And we are the master. All right. So this wraps up part 2 of Lab 6-1. What we're going to take a look at next is going to be Lab 6-2, where we're going to dive into GLBP. And we're actually going to be pulling in, I should say, HSRP for IPv6. And we're actually going to be pulling in quite a few other components. We've got 3 routers that are going to be involved, running EIGRP, distribution, 2 distribution layer switches, and then access layer switch 1. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you tomorrow night.